Hi, Joe. Good morning to you. How are you?
I'm okay, thanks, Nicolette. And you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for saying yes. For our listeners today, I'd like to introduce myself and to you as well. I'd like to introduce myself formally. My name is Nicolette. I am the creator for the podcast titled You're Worthless. Read that again. The juxtaposition of your very soul. Again, like I've mentioned before, thank you so much for saying yes to be interviewed today. And before we start our conversation, I'd like to read a bit of introduction before we get right into it. So, hey everyone, we have Joe Barnes here with us. So, a bit of Joe's background. So, he dropped out of college, out of university at 18. He said he was fed up with the constant chase of life and the feeling that he'd always be working towards something, but never actually living. So he became a tennis coach and a hypnotherapist in his early 20s. He wanted to do work where he was passionate about and felt meaningful to him. In his late 20s and early 30s, he began writing his first book, Escape the System. Looking at job dissatisfaction statistics, he knew he wasn't the only one who was disappointed with a conventional career path. He wanted to give these people a voice and a path out of life that wasn't of their own choosing. He has now continued to write books and promote his writing. In his late 30s, he started a personal development group called Success Club to help entrepreneurs, artists, and creators succeed with their different projects. Wow, Joe, welcome.
Thanks. It's a great introduction. Thank you.
A lot to learn from you, definitely. Because I was in the 9 to 5, now just stepping out to become a hypnotherapist and a coach.
Ah,
So definitely me talking to my guests is sort of like me trying to get their insights and guidance here and there. So yeah, before we start off, Joe, can you share with us what was it like growing up as a Joe Barnes?
as a Joe Barnes.
Mm-hmm.
It was good to begin with. My early childhood was very happy, but everything changed when I went to secondary school. I was going to my first school was a very sheltered school. It was maybe 7 minutes drive from where I lived. Lovely environment, lots of woods, lots of green grass, an old English building, really, really nice school, lots of friends there, very happy. And then I went to a bigger town, and that change of school around age 11 sort of burst my bubble because it was my first experience of not fitting in. I
Mm.
found it very difficult to make friends at my new school, didn't really understand, get what they were all talking about, what their interests were. And as a result, I experienced something I never felt before, which was loneliness. I'd never experienced before that. I was always very happy. But that change burst my bubble. I found it difficult to fit in, and that was a continuing theme then throughout my teenage years into my time at university after I left. I always found myself feeling like a little bit of an outsider. And that very much inspired or not created a direction for me to follow in terms that I found it very difficult to fit in with conventional ways of working and living. So it very much put me in a position where I had to find my own path. So that's in a nutshell what it's like being me.
And I was reading your profile when I was preparing for the interview before just now. And you got onto that notion of what is there more to life, like this is what I'm getting. And earlier on, even you dropped out of university when you were 18 and you were fed up. I was fed up when I was at least when 29, I guess. That's when life humbled me. So and you caught on to that very early in your life. What was the, just me being curious now, pivotal moment that made you, that made you feel that way? That
I
yeah.
remember being, yes, as I said, I was 18. I think I was about 2 months into my university degree, which at the time was history and politics. And I just remember sitting in my room or somebody else's room, doing some study, not being interested in it at all, and just thinking to myself, when is this ever going to end? Because I'd done 14 years of schooling, I think. And okay, looking back now, school was actually relatively interesting. compared to what some jobs are like. There's a lot of variety at school, but I think the thing I didn't like was always being told there's something on the horizon. So at school, you were always told that you're doing this so you can score good results in your exams. In the UK, we have something
Mm-hmm.
called GCSEs at 16, A levels at 18. So they're like the major national exams. So you're always told that you're preparing for that. And then when you do that, I felt like, oh, I've done so much work for these. Do I finally get to live now? Does life get a bit more enjoyable and fun and less relentless and stressful? And I got to university and 2 months in, and I thought, no, it doesn't actually. It's just the same old thing. Now I'm being told I've got to prepare for I've got a 3 years university course, which I've got to do well in to get a good degree. Why do I need a good degree? Because I've got to get a well-paid job. Then when I get to the job, is it going to end? No, it's not going to end because I'm going to be told I've got to get promotion, and then I've got to get
Oh
the
shit.
next promotion. So I just thought this can't be life. We can't
Yeah.
we can't live this way really, or I can't live this way because it seems like you're never actually living. You're always working towards something. So I questioned that, and that made me drop out. Now, I couldn't find anything
Mm-hmm.
better to do, so I actually then went back to university the next year studying a different course, slightly different course. I dropped the history and just studied politics. And because I couldn't find anything better to do, I completed my course and did my 3 years at university and then came back and had this big moment of what do I actually do here? I don't want to make the same mistake I made with my course in the sense that I'm doing something that I don't find particularly inspiring or interesting. So I took a real turn. I really diverted from the commonly followed path. And as you mentioned in the introduction, took a exam to become qualified as a tennis coach, qualified as a hypnotherapist, and then later on began writing my books.
Those were all very diverse paths, like something that did you do them like sequentially, or is it like you did them all at once?
The tennis coaching and the hypnotherapy more together. I became a
Right.
tennis coach a year before a hypnotherapist. And then, so that was like it was almost my plan that would be my platform because they're both jobs that I enjoy. They're both jobs where you
Right.
can get
I love
paid
that.
a relatively high amount per hour. So you
Mm-hmm.
don't need to do 8 hours every single day to support yourself.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
would therefore give me time to focus on my writing. So that was always the plan. It's just a plan that ended up taking me a lot longer than I thought it would. But I thought I would get clients and customers immediately as a tennis coach and a hypnotherapist. And it obviously takes a while to build up that business. So then that
That's right.
delays writing the book. And then when you start writing the book, you realize you're not quite as good as you thought you were, and you have to revise the book, rewrite it 4 times is what I initially had to do. So all of this delays you or delayed me. And my plan was good, but it just took a bit longer for me to reach the point where I wanted to be.
But it's funny, yeah. We had a plan, right? But we often think that okay, we're gonna get it done at least in the specified period. But then somehow, I don't know if you believe in, I don't know, some higher power. It's just like, okay, this is not the time yet. You can envision, you can see the future, the light at the end of the tunnel, but the walk or the run or the crawl, you still have to get through it. Sometimes we diminish that, but then once you actually get to that side, you think of it like, I actually planned it and I got it, but then, of course, the journey was a lot. It's realer than I had thought initially. I mean, this is just what I have been experiencing so far with my life. Yeah, because I believe that wherever we are, we've actually prayed for what we've gotten now.
Oh, I
So the
see. Yeah.
freedom, yeah, yeah. So well, this connects very smoothly to my next question then, Joe. What is the difference between a leader, a follower, and a rebel?
All right. So this is obviously relating to my new book, the Rebel Code,
Yeah.
where I talk about all of those different. I believe there are three types of people on the earth. You're either a leader, a follower, and a rebel. So the difference between the three of them is basically your drives and motivation. A leader is motivated by the need for power. A follower is motivated by the need for security. and a rebel is motivated by the need for freedom. So because we have all of these different drives and motivations, we will tend to follow certain paths through life. The leader is someone who enforces the status quo in our society. We have many people in leadership positions, and they tend to enforce the status quo. As I said, their drive is power, so they want to maintain their position. You have good and bad leaders. You have good leaders who are leading for the benefit of all, and you have bad leaders who are leading to maintain their position of power. Unfortunately, I feel in the world we have more bad leaders than we have good leaders, and most of them are looking out to hold on to their own position, whether that's in politics, whether that's in business, whether that's in the military, whatever structure it might be. Unfortunately, most leaders are bad leaders, and they tend to want to maintain their position of power. The follower is somebody who seeks security. They're not necessarily somebody who agrees with what the leaders do. They may actually feel like the rebels do, and they want things to change. But when it comes to acting on that impulse, they never will, because they fear that if they ever try to create change or change the status quo, it's going to harm their sense of security. And that will ultimately keep them quiet and make sure that they never really take any action to change their lives. Now, the rebels are different. The rebels are in the minority. In the book, I say they're about 5% of the human population. These are the people who have such a strong need for freedom that they will challenge the status quo. Are prepared to put themselves in the firing line and say, hey, this isn't right. I don't want to do this. I want to do something else. They're going to rock the boat, which is something we're always taught not to do. But they're going to do that. But rebels play a vital role because they're the only ones who can challenge the status quo and create change, because they ask the questions that the other two personality types don't. So in a nutshell, that's the difference between the three types of people.
When you were explaining, I was thinking, could a person or an individual be all three, but at different stages of their lives, right? They don't have to, like, I'm a rebel, but then all the way you're a rebel. I mean, you can be a leader when you have people like wanting to follow you because of the way you lead. So yeah, your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't delve into that too much in the book, because just for the sake of the book is really about rebels. It's not about, although I mention leaders and followers quite a lot, it's not for those two personality types. It's a self-help book for rebels. So I don't go too much into that, but you're right, of course. With these personality types, there's a long history of them. You've got the Myers-Briggs test. I think Carl Jung originally created some. So I don't think it's ever that one person fits neatly into one box. You can have traits of all three. A good example of exactly what you were just talking about, and it's an example I use in the book, is somebody like Nelson Mandela, who to begin with was a rebel, an out-and-out rebel.
I thought of him as well.
Challenging the South African government and the system of apartheid. And then through all of his struggle, he eventually became the leader of the country. Now, he would have always had leadership qualities, I'm sure, even in his rebel phase. So that's an example that you can be both. And even a rebel at some points occasionally may display follower tendencies, or it's more likely that a follower is going to rebel, is going to feel that they want to rebel now and again. So yes, you can have tendencies across all three of the personality types.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Now, I think you mentioned rebels. Why are they important in the world? Now, what are the three things a rebel can do to improve their quality of life?
Okay, so if you find yourself, you feel that you're a rebel, what I'm saying resonates with you, then I would say build your life around your three main needs. I only mentioned one of them so far, and that was freedom. The other two are meaning, and the final one is connection. Now, connection's a human need. Whether you're a leader, follower, rebel, you need connection with other people. So we're going to take that one for granted. But the rebels have a slight problem with that, because as I was explaining in my backstory to you at the start, we often feel like we don't fit in. And as a result, it can be quite difficult to create that connection. So I do talk in the book, I think I have a whole chapter about it, about how to create that connection as a rebel. But the other two factors are building your life of freedom and meaning. So freedom comes down to probably a big part of that is working on your own terms. It is possible to have an employed job as a rebel and feel like you've got some sense of freedom. I just think it's going to be harder. I think it's going to be easier to meet your need for freedom if you're setting your own schedule, if you control your working hours, if you can ensure that you have variety in your life. That, I would say, is going to help meet your need for freedom. Then your need for meaning is slightly harder because we live in a society where everything is very materialistic and superficial. So unless you really look for it, unless you really create it yourself, it's hard to find meaning. There aren't that many projects out there you can join that are really meaningful. Most of the companies you're going to work for, their main incentive is just to make profit. They may have some fancy mission statement which says they want to improve the world in this way, or Shell Oil tells people, yes, we're looking to build a sustainable future. It's all bullshit. They're just looking to make a profit. So basically, you've got to be careful as a rebel about what you join, because although they may
what
say they've got a
yeah.
big mission, underneath it, it's more than likely they're just looking to make money. There's nothing wrong with making money. I don't want to say that there is, but for a rebel, it's pretty meaningless if that's your main purpose for work. So you have to have something deeper. And again, this probably means you finding your own project, your own meaningful project to create, where you can work by yourself or with a team of other people, which is having some positive impact on the world. So in short, as a rebel, the three things you should be looking for are freedom, building a life of freedom, meaning, and connection.
Freedom, meaning, and connection. I love that. I mean, because you're already at the I don't know. I am only entering the stage where you entered, like back when you were, turning 20, and right now you've already started. What was your journey like from the becoming a tennis coach and a hypnotherapist, and then you started writing your book, and then you decided to, okay, Success Club. Like, what were what were your drivers or your motivation to do all of this?
I think it probably goes back to those three things I talked about. The freedom. I wanted freedom. I didn't want to be working 9 to 5, or let's face it, it's longer than 9 to 5, 8 to 6 every day, Monday to Friday. I wanted something meaningful. That, more than anything, that was what I wanted, something meaningful, to be able to feel that my life has had some kind of positive impact on the world. It's hard to tell sometimes, but you set out with the best of intentions. You hope that your work, whether that's a book that somebody's going to read or a hypnotherapy session you do with them, is going to improve somebody else's life in some way. So those were my drives. And then I just think there's an innate drive. There's always been something inside me which I can't put my finger on, which has pushed me to follow this path. I'm always super inspired by certain movies and films where you've got like a maverick following his own path, doing his own thing. I'm inspired by films where the good guys, the small group of good guys, stand up to the seemingly all
The
powerful
underdog. Same. Yeah.
So there's
Me
always
too.
been that part of me. So I guess that's just something that's just innately inside of me.
Thank you for sharing that. So, okay, I think we mentioned one impactful rebel just few minutes ago, Nelson Mandela. So, what are the two other most impactful rebels throughout the history? Some trivia.
Okay. I don't, it's difficult to say throughout history. I think obviously Nelson Mandela would be one throughout history. Somebody springs to mind. Okay, I think his impact is large, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
changed the system in the way that Nelson Mandela did in South Africa. Arnold Schwarzenegger
Sure.
springs to mind straight away. He was very rebellious.
Wow.
He's a personal inspiration of mine, and I'm sure he's a personal inspiration for millions of people, because he said, I don't want the life that is given to me, that my parents want for me, that I should be living according to my surroundings and community. You probably know he grew up in a small town in Austria, but he had big dreams of going to America and becoming a bodybuilding champion and a movie star. So that for me is an example of a rebel who has had an outrageous vision, who shows to all other rebels that you can have an outrageous vision and make it come true. And you don't just have to accept the life that is presented to you and put up with that and live that. You can create and define your own life. So I put him as my second one. And I also list a slightly unknown one in the book as well. Not unknown, famous from history, but not really contemporary or modern. And so I'll go with a woman for my third one. And it may on the surface appear like a strange choice, but it's Queen Elizabeth I of England. You may think, well, why would I choose her? Well, she did rebel because she refused to get married. She's known as the Virgin Queen because she never got married and never had kids. Now, you may think, oh, God, that's terrible for her. She must have been very lonely. She may have had partners, men in her life. There's a lot of speculation over whether she did or didn't, but she never officially got married. Reason being, she knew at that time in the 16th century that if she married a man, even though she was the bloodline, she was the daughter of Henry VIII, that she would lose all her power. The king, even though he wasn't of the bloodline, would de facto be the one ruling over her and ruling the country. So I thought that was quite a rebellious and inspiring act to say that, no, I'm not going to get married. She strung along a load of men, pretended that she was going to get married to sort of appease the government and appease her advisors, but never actually did. So I thought that was quite a impressive juggling act, the way she did that. So I'll go with those three: Nelson Mandela, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Queen Elizabeth I.
I love that. Again, when you were saying that about Queen Elizabeth, gave me a thought, like she had the duality in her. She was a leader because she was trying to stay in power, but she was also a rebel at the same time. So a very obvious reason, a very obvious example. Wow, amazing. Ding, I had an epiphany there. Thank you for that, Joe. Okay, now I think we mentioned about people rebelling and going towards what they want to do for their freedom, to create meaning, to find that meaning and to create connection. So how can one person make money from their passion when they still have to work a full-time job to pay their commitments? At least the first part, before transitioning into it fully.
Well, I guess it's a question of so how can someone make money? You've got to identify your passion first. Let's say let's say you have, for the sake of argument, identified your passion. My answer then would be, you've got to try and work a consistent amount of time per week on that passion. So let's say you're working full-time hours, 40 hours a week. Can you then carve out 10 hours a week where you can put the time into making an advance in that passion? Now, I don't know what your particular passion might be, but let's use an example I'm familiar with, which is writing. Let's say you want to become a writer. Well, then you've got 10 hours, you can carve out 10 hours a week. And so for maybe 6 or 7 of those hours a week, you're actually writing your book, your new book. For 3 of the hours a week, you're going on some social media and trying to build an audience so that when you launch your book, you have some people to sell the book to. So the point is the same. It doesn't matter what you do the work on, because it may be a business, you may be trying to create and sell a product. It doesn't matter what you do the work on. The principle is the same, that you need to carve out a certain amount of time per week. When I'm coaching people and in my books, I always say 20 hours a week minimum. But that's difficult. So if you're working 40 hours a week at your job and then doing 20 hours a week on your passion, it's hard to find the time, especially if you then have a family on top of that,
Yeah,
or you have a boyfriend or girlfriend,
exactly.
you have friends. So ultimately, what I would say is try to cut down the hours you do in your regular job. Try to get to the point where you can make just enough money to support yourself or your family. And anything above that,
Mm,
you try and reduce the hours. So you're doing part-time hours, maybe 30 hours a week. So you then free up more time to work on your passion. I think a lot of people, it depends what country you live in, but here in the UK, the salaries are relatively good. The cost of living is very high, but there are ways around that. We don't need to go on 3 holidays a year. It's not an essential. We don't need to have a really expensive wardrobe. So there are ways to cut. We don't need to, food is another thing you can easily spend lots of money on, eating out, getting takeaways. There are ways to cut back on your expenditure so that you can actually do less hours at work and spend more time on your passion. So that for me is the first step to making a living from a passion, because the more hours you spend on it, those 10 hours a week, every week of the year, they all add up to the point where you may now have a product you can sell. Once you sell that product, you can start making money from your passion. And perhaps at some point, you can leave your old job and start working full time on your passion.
mm. I guess consistency and determination play a big
Y-
role
Yeah,
in
but planning as well, being, I'm deliberate in
yeah,
saying like 10
planning.
or 20
Yeah.
hours a week, because it's so easy to say, right, I'm going to be consistent and determined
Mm,
working on my passion. But unless you actually carve out the time and you write in your diary, you know, block out 6 to 8 p.m. on Monday evening working on my passion. You block out Saturday morning, 9 till 1 p.m. working on my passion, is how you will actually get down and put the hours in and do the work.
it's a reminder, like it's common sense, right? But sometimes when we implement it, it gets super hard. I mean, it's easier said than done, but yeah, again, I think this is to reiterate again to our listeners out there that if they are feeling miserable wherever they are right now with their whatever they're doing, if it's a business or a job, then they can do this. Hopefully it'll give them some to exit soon.
Absolutely.
So Joe, this one question that I was quite curious, like why do you have a 66% chance of living your dreams? I mean, my first thought was because the 33% is that we're sleeping. I don't know if
Mhm.
I'm wrong. Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
mean,
yeah,
yeah,
I'll
please
break
do
this
share.
down. Yeah, this is just a theory I have. My point is that it's easier to live your dreams than we're told. We're always told, 9 out of 10 new businesses fail. So that would give you, a 10% chance at living your dreams. We're always told, look, if you're not super talented or lucky, um, then it's unlikely you can do it. You've just got to accept a regular job. So these are the messages we get throughout childhood into our adulthood whenever we try to do something different or exceptional. But it's likely that you're going to fail. So I wanted to actually just analyze that assumption and break it down and actually look at it and come to the conclusion that, well, we've actually got a lot more chance to succeed than you think. So this is how I come to the 66% figure. Let's say 1,000 people are all going for the same position, the same dream job. They all want the same thing. Well, straight away, you can dismiss 900 of those people. You can dismiss 90% of the competition, because these people are just they're the talkers. They're not the doers. They're going to say, yeah, I'm going to go and do that, but they never do. All they end up doing is talking about what they're going to do. They're not going to enroll in any courses. They're not going to buy any equipment. They're not going to do any research. They're simply going to sit on their couch, their sofa, and watch Netflix and talk about doing something. This group of people are the procrastinators. So straight away, 90% of your competition are gone, because they're not even going to lift a finger. So you've got 100 people left. Of that 100 people, about 80 of them are the triers. They're going to do something. They're going to buy the course. They're going to do some research. They're going to spend maybe 6 months on this project trying to get it going. But after a while, they're going to just either lose interest, or they're going to experience one or two failures. And because they've always been told, look, 90% of new businesses fail, you can never do anything extraordinary unless you're born with exceptional talent or luck, they'll just say, well, all those people were right in the first place. I gave it a try. It didn't work. I quit. So that's about 80 extra people. So now you're only left with 20 people who are direct competition. Now, these are the minor players. These are the people who do succeed at living their dream on some level, but ultimately they can't support themselves, because if you can continue to support yourself, you've got an unlimited runway to live your dreams. But these people can't continue to support themselves throughout the years, maybe 3, 4, 5 years of trying. So they eventually say, look, I've got to stop doing this. So then you've eliminated another 17 people. So it's down to you and 2 other people. And that's where I come to the 66% figure, because I also say that, look, you don't have to be number one to live your dreams. I make the point that there's Coca-Cola and Pepsi. In football, there was Ronaldo and Messi. In tennis, there's 3 of them. There's Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer. You don't always have to be number one to live your dreams. So ultimately, if you can just fill one of the 3 spots that remain, so 2 out of 3 are going to succeed, 1 isn't. So that's a 2/3 chance you'll succeed, 66%. So that's how I came to the figure. Now, it's not a exact science. It's more to make the point that you've actually got, when you actually think about it and break it down, you've got a better chance at living your dream than you're told. So as long as you can do a couple of things, 1 is persevere and keep going. 2 is continue to support yourself while you're doing it. If you can do those 2 things, you'll be amazed at how far you can get.
I love that. You close it up with perseverance and keep going, because my next question to you was that, does that mean that we just focus on our own lane, so we become champions of our own league, right? And then because if you think about it, how long? I said there were 17 people that after 5 years or certain period of time, they would say, this is too much. I don't think I can continue. So how long should that person persevere? Like throughout, like for as long as they can, and from there onwards, then they become the Roger, the Nadal, and where's the other one? I'm not a
Djokovic.
big fan of
Djokovic.
tennis. Djokovic, yes, Novak, yeah. Is that how we should perceive it as? Is that how we should look at it? So let's say if I want to be the best in my, I don't know, life coaching, hypnotherapist. So, and of course, there's a lot of, it's like mushrooms here, right? There are new hypnotherapists graduating as well. So your advice.
I think the advice from the example is you may want to become the best, that's great, but you don't always have to become the best to live your dream. My ultimate goal is to sell 1 million copies of my books. Now, that won't make me the number 1 self-help author in the world. I don't need to be the number 1 self-help author in the world to live my dreams. It probably won't even make me in the top 10 or even the top 20. But I don't care, because that's the figure I've decided on. That would be enough impact for me. And that to me would be a dream fulfillment. So yeah, when you say find your lane, that's really essentially what it means. It doesn't really matter what level other people reach, as long as you are satisfied with where you get to. Maybe you will only be satisfied with being number 1. Well, that's fine. That's your motivation. That's okay. So the message is that the goal you set for yourself has to be meaningful to you, not other people. It's not necessary. What does it matter if I'm the best or the number 1
people's achievement?
Yeah, number 1 self-help author in the world? It doesn't mean a whole lot to me. What means a whole lot to me is making a considerable income from my books and reaching 10,000 lives, which I figure if I sold 1 million books, probably 10,000 of those people would have a really strong reaction to the books I'm writing. So that's what I feel is important when it comes to identifying your dream.
I love that. It's like a message again I get on my podcast and I wait for the messages because I always believe in don't look at the messenger, but look at the message that's coming. Like what can I take away from this personally besides my listeners? So I think today, because I was just building my website today and then getting on my Instagram, and I was like, when you said maybe get a goal that is meaningful for you, and that goal could be an X number of people that you want to help or coach or help with your therapy. So that's a good one.
Yes,
So thank you,
absolutely.
Joe. So what work are you most proud of today?
I guess I'm proud that I'm most proud of the fact I made the decision to walk the path I walked. If it all finished now, I wouldn't feel I've completed my mission. I haven't got to the end. As I said, 1 million books sold is my ultimate target, and I'm a long way off that. So I wouldn't feel I would feel dissatisfied if it all stopped now. But what I'm most proud of is the fact that I've done it, that I walked this path, that I committed myself to doing something I believed in, and I've lived every day in pursuit of that dream and living that dream. So that to me is something I'm really proud of, the fact that I had the courage to walk away from, both my parents were lawyers. I was raised to follow in their footsteps. And, that's a lucrative profession. So in a way, I gave up a chance at making lots of money. And instead, I stayed true to what I believe in. And that I'm proud of. I'm proud of, we've had in my tennis coaching, I've coached players who've gone on to play at national level in the UK. We have a local teams, and some of the kids we've had they won 2 of the local county leagues here as well. So I'm really proud of that stuff. I'm
Wow.
super proud of all the changes I've helped with hypnotherapy. When I get somebody improving their sleep, because insomnia is what got me into hypnotherapy. When I help somebody to lose weight, when they just turn up to a session and they feel like a transformation has happened from the week before. I'm really proud of that stuff. And I'm just the biggest thing of all, though, is when somebody messages me about my books. It says, just read your book and it's really changed the way I look at life, or has given me a new lease of life and energy. That to me gives me the greatest sense of satisfaction. So it's probably hearing from readers who my books have had a big impact on.
And I had a chance at peeking at your website today. I was reading your reviews and I felt the energy. I was like, yeah, this is somebody who's actually truly living their path. So kudos. I really I felt very connected because this is what I also advocate to people from corporate especially who wants to jump out from the system. So understand, Joe, that you are probably busy with promoting your book, right, at the moment. So is there anything else that you're working on currently, presently?
Not particularly, you're right. It's just promoting the book. I entered a book writing competition at the start of the year, so I had to delay all my promotion. For Hay House. I don't know if you've heard of Hay House, but I
Hey, how's
publishing, yeah,
publishing?
yeah.
Okay, yeah, so okay, I thought
So
so.
that was a
Yeah.
slightly different book I was writing, and unfortunately, I didn't win the competition. So that was 4 months' work. It's not gone to waste because I've still got the book, I've still got a proposal, but it delayed everything by 4 months. So now I'm doing all my catch up with the promoting of the Rebel Code. After that, I think I'm actually going to be doing something connected to my hypnotherapy. I've created a recovering from insomnia product. So that's basically 3 hypno recordings that I've done, plus a PDF
Oh,
with
awesome.
rules for sleeping better. So I actually plan to just take a little change of direction and launch that product and try and sell it and get it out there and help people with that.
I love that. You've given me a lot of ideas. Thank you. So, Joe, I'm going to pivot to a self-worth question because my podcast talks a lot about self-worth. So, the question for you today, in your journey, do you think have you found a connection between spirituality and self-worth. And in your opinion, if you do, or if you maybe know, you've not found the connection, like how do these whatever beliefs influence your sense of self?
So the subject of self-worth is interesting. I may not answer your question exactly, but I will say this on
That's
self-worth
okay.
because it's really quite important. As a rebel or outsider, whatever you want to call yourself, I remember distinctly when I was starting off my journey in in some respects, my self-worth was quite low because I thought, why can't I fit into the system the way
Fit
everybody
in.
else does? And there must
Yeah.
be something wrong with me. I don't have any relationships. I don't have a girlfriend. I'm doing these jobs which people wonder why I'm doing them. Why am I not trying to become a lawyer or get a super well paid job? So I thought that I was less than the majority, the mainstream. I thought I was below the mainstream in a way. And it was only as I began to succeed and progress and, got a girlfriend and relationships, started to be more successful with my work, that I realized that I should have never put myself down in that way at all. Everybody who
Yeah.
is seemingly to be normal and successful, quite often, if they were completely honest and within the own space of their mind, would admit that they are struggling through life and that they are just trying to play a role and fit in. They don't really know why they're doing that, but they're just doing that because there seems to be safety in numbers. Whereas there was me believing that I was beneath these people. But I was one of the rare ones who had the strength and courage to actually stay true to themselves. So if you are somebody who feels that your self-worth is below what is considered normal or most people, then understand that if you're true to yourself and you're following your own path, you can never be below those people because you have the courage to actually stay true to yourself, and that is worth a lot. So I would say that on self-worth, don't ever put yourself down because you think you're not like the mainstream, you're not like other people.
Mic drop. Thank you. That was incredible. I love that. So, Joe, what is your heart's greatest wish?
For myself or for other people or the planet, I don't really.
For yourself, the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay, well, I really think two my heart's greatest wish is, I think for the planet it would be to get rid of nuclear weapons and end all war. There is some scary situations going on at the moment, which makes me concerned. At
Mhm.
the start I mentioned bad leadership and how I believe everybody,
Yeah,
in the self-help world is always talking about leadership, and yes, I want to be a leader. But there are so many bad leaders out there, so many, and they're pushing us in a direction of conflict, potential escalation of war. So it's really, but my heart's wish is that would all de-escalate, that we could get some good leaders in place who lead for the people and not their own interests, and that the world could be a much more peaceful place, and that we could start taking important issues like climate change seriously in our environment and start addressing that, because I think we're going to have real problems in the decades to come with the impact of that and how we keep ignoring it and how we're so greedy and we want more and more money and we think that wealth and materialism is the solution to everything, and it's not. And we don't realize that, and the fallout of that is the destruction of our environment. So my wish is that we would just all wake up and realize that we're really going down the wrong path and that we need to rethink as humanity, we need to rethink about what direction we're going in. So yeah, I think that would be it.
no comment. That was impeccable. Now, Joe, if you could create a quote right now for you to leave to the audience listening and the world as your legacy, what would it be?
Just create a quote off the top of my head. A Joe Barnes quote, or
Mm-hmm.
can I steal something? Can I steal?
It's okay, yeah. You can
Okay,
steal from somebody else.
I'll steal somebody else's quote because this is my favorite quote. It's George Bernard Shaw. He was an Irish playwright. He said something along the lines of, The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable man adapts the world to himself. That's why all progress is made by unreasonable men. So that's the quote I would steal. That's the one I wish I'd made. So basically, what he's saying is that,
That's
and
deep. Can you
yeah,
explain that?
I'll unpack it. So first of all, when he's saying, you've got to understand, when he's saying men, he was writing in the 19th century. He means men and women. Basically, it's not just men. So men and women. If you're a reasonable person, you just do what you're told and you get on with life. But nothing changes if you just do what you're told and get on with life. Unreasonable people say, no, I don't like that. I'm not accepting that. We can improve this. We can do this differently. Therefore, only real change and improvement comes from unreasonable people. So you may think it's bad to be an unreasonable person, but actually the world needs their unreasonable people. This is basically what he's saying with that quote.
Hashtag rebel.
Yeah.
Okay, so how can people reach out to you?
So basically, the best place to go is my website, which is www.escapethesystemnow. There you will see my blog. You will see my contact details if you want to get in touch. You'll also see a little bit about my books. But also, I wanted to do a special offer, Nicolette, for your listeners and your viewers. I don't know how soon will this air? How soon will this go out?
Maybe in the next month or so.
Okay. But if you send me the dates, what I'll do is when this launches, for the first 48 hours of this being live, I will reduce the price of my book, The Rebel Code, the electronic version anyway, the Kindle version. I'll put it down to $1 for 48 hours so we can have a link there. If anybody wants to read that, they can get it for just $1 for those 48 hours after this episode goes live.
Awesome. That would be really great. And then, okay, say they're past that 48 hours, then how much would that cost?
It's still not. It's $4. So you can get it for $4. You can get the Kindle version.
That's okay.
But if you go in within 48 hours,
it's
just $1.
Yeah. Okay, $1 is fine. I mean, I would like to purchase that. When is the launching of the book?
Oh, sorry, the book launched. It launched a while ago, so at the start of this year.
The book was launched. Okay,
yes.
But then, right, so you want to when okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Just as a special offer for your viewers and listeners, I can obviously change the price on it and put it down.
That would be really lovely. Thank you so much. Well, okay, there you have it, guys. You heard it from the person himself, Joe Barnes. Before we close off, Joe, I'd like to thank you personally for the work that you're doing for the world and for advancing every step of the way, despite the challenges, creating trails for those that will come after you. And for our listeners today, this has been that one podcast with that controversial name, You're Worthless. Read that again, the juxtaposition of your very soul. Now, if you find yourself thinking that you are worthless, you're probably not alone. But more importantly, ask yourself a level deeper. If I'm worthless, then why the heck am I here? It is because your soul have chosen to be here energetically, all the way from the ethers, and for that reason itself, you are worthy and you are enough. This has been Joe Barnes, your guest of the day, and Nick Nieras, your host, signing off. Thank you so much, Joe, for your time.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you.
Thank you.